Well, I came out to Kentucky in 1985 from a little place called Gunnison, Colorado. And I think I was high man in the county at $28 to shoe a horse and $12 to trim a horse, I think. I came out here because I was accepted to the graduate program at University of Kentucky. So I came out here to go to graduate school. Ended up meeting a guy named Dr. James Rooney. We just hit it off famously, so I spent most of my time in my latter years of my graduate program with Dr. Rooney. And Dr. Rooney is the one that taught me mostly about biomechanics, kind of got me going and learned how to dissect legs properly, and him and David Duckett. I was going to just get my degree and then go back home to Colorado. I remember I met a guy named Steve Norman, and Steve Norman brought me into the thoroughbred industry and taught me all about the thoroughbred industry. And so I started plating yearlings at $75 a piece for the front end, and I thought that was pretty good. So we stuck around, started buying houses, cars, having babies, and get through 20 head of yearlings. It's young horses, and it's a lot of work. So my back blew out for the second time. Another disc blew out on L4, L5. Laid up in the hospital and decided, boy, I got a baby on the ground, I got a new house, I got a new vehicle, what am I going to do? I can't bend over to put my socks on. So I went out and visited with Mr. Don Canfield, and he had this old school out in Mount Eden, which was about 12 miles off of the Interstate 64. And so I bought that school from Mr. Canfield and just built it up, and I just basically learned how to be a farrier instructor with very little instruction. And so, but my academic world, my degrees in biology and chemistry and my master's degrees, in my master's work anyway, it's taught me how to be a better learner and how to be a better teacher. So that started me, and that allowed me to know what to do to get the info to learn to be a better teacher. And I always thought that the schools in America were subpar. I thought they weren't doing a good job, they weren't long enough. And so I decided to see if I could buy the school and change this phenomena that farriers get out of school or start and they cripple horses for a while until they get it figured out. And that's kind of hard on horses. So I decided to see if I could get people trained up so that they understood what they were getting into better. And I knew how I felt when I started. I didn't feel like I knew what I was doing, although I went to a school in Steamboat Springs, Colorado, and I did an apprenticeship in Southern California for a year with a really good guy, but still I was hitting the open market and for the general public probably before I was ready to. So anyway, it's kind of the same thing with the school. I just kind of started, and I thought, well, I can teach people to shoe horses, and come to find out, you've got all different types of people with all types of learning disabilities, with all types of backgrounds. And so it's been an adventure in the last, since 1985. I stayed at that old school for 20 years, and we had built some great farriers. I know Billy Reed from Texas came up. He was one of the first guys that made the team, and Conrad Trow and Sam Gooding and Jeff Townsend Bears going back to England. And I think we've had something like 13 or 14 people that have made the U.S. Canadian national teams. And a couple that have made some of the teams over in Europe. So I think over our years we've had 14 people that have made national teams. 3 of our guys have coached our U.S. national team. So point is, we made some really good farriers in that old beat up, dilapidated school. I tried everything. I tried 2-week courses to make money, 3-week courses, 4-week, 6-week, 9-week courses, 12-week courses, 16, 24. Now we've got a 36-week course. And what happened was I paid attention to what my students were doing, and I figured out that about anything less than 12 weeks of schooling, we've got 80 to 90% attrition within 5 years. And it's very difficult to keep up with that and to find that, but that's the best I could do. And talking to everybody and my own experiences, I found that the longer time, the better you can get somebody trained, and the longer they're going to be in the industry, the more chance they have of success. So I decided, I was in the middle of central Kentucky, in the horse capital of the world. I had a lot of industry help with the university, with Root and Riddle, with Keeneland Racetrack, with the Kentucky Horse Park. Everybody was willing to come in and give guest talks and stuff. So I really had a little bit of an advantage, and I took advantage of it. And so we decided to move the school to Lexington, build a proper curriculum, 9-month curriculum, and it's 3 semesters. And it has standards for each semester and timed proficiencies that guys got to do to work on their fundamentals. And so now, after 9 months of school, most everybody, 90%, at least 90% of people go on and do an apprenticeship. We hear good things from the mentors that take our students on, and we've been doing this since 2010. And so because we have a 9-month program, we've got ourselves accredited with the National or the Department of Education. Our students now can receive Title IV money like every other college student in America. They can get a loan, they can get Pell Grants, they can chill out and spend the time necessary it takes to work out the kinks and master the fundamentals, so you don't go out and cripple horses for a couple of years before you get it figured out. That's the goal. Now at the end of that 12 years, we look back, and because we are accredited, we have to keep records. I think we've got 85% of the students that are still shoeing horses for their main source of income after 5 years. And so I think that's a testament to just the length of time that they spend ironing out their fundamentals. So I was really mad at God for breaking my back again. Didn't know what that was all about, and I realized that my job on this world is to be a farrier instructor, and that's my instructions from my boss. And so he's facilitated. I've been blessed enough to have some good things happen. We've got some good people that have helped us, and now we've got a course that we have a pretty good success rate with, and people end up doing good. I like to talk to all of our mentors to check in with them nowadays to find out how the students are doing, what they need help in, what they're weak in, what things that we can work on to constantly improve the curriculum and the skills of the students as entry-level farriers. So. In the old days, we had shorter courses. We had students that were more mature, average age in the 30s. Most of these people had a family at home, a young family, owned a truck, had some land, had life experience, knew how to work ethic, kind of knew what they were getting into. They really, it was hard for them to spend, much more than 16 weeks out of school. But these guys were much more focused. You could push them harder, not to worry about hurting their feelings so much. Nowadays, we've got a much younger crowd, which is good, and in that we're starting them off younger, but the work ethic, the grit, it doesn't seem to be the same. We've got a little bit of entitlement on a lot of students. When I was that age, I grew up dirt poor and needed to make some money. Students seem to be not really that excited, and there doesn't seem to be that much urgency in getting out and getting a job and getting started. A lot of times they want to take a gap year before they go from the school to their apprenticeship, and so we have a little bit of that we have to deal with. And I got to give Dr. Butler credit, because he was the first one to really come out and formally teach us about opening up our right brain, and he actually wrote a book about that. And I never was really artistic, but I guess I was. I guess I did have some skills, so I've always doodled and drawed And the more I draw, the more, precise you get. And so I've realized that they do this thing of visualization in the professional sport world, and skiing and all different sports. They teach visualization. And that's what this drawing is about. It's really not an artistic drawing. It's sketching proportionately accurate representations of what you see. And what that does is allows the student to use a medium that they can control and build the toe quarters, position the heels, the quarters, the heels, the frog, erase it, redraw, and get it worked out while they're looking at a foot. And basically they build that shoe. They build the radius of the toe, they build the radiuses of the quarters and the quarter bends. They can then build that shape on paper in a medium they can control, and they get that shape a little bit better in their mind, so if they're in the anvil, when they get lost, that shape is burnt in their mind better. And that's a skill I've learned that if they can master, they do much better. We can teach them to fit shoes much faster. So one of the big problems with teaching people to shoe horses is fitting shoes. Trimming the feet, prepping the feet, yeah, that takes a lot of time. But shoe fitting in an accurate way is by far the hardest thing to do. Making shoes is easier. Making ideal shoes and nice symmetrical shoes is much easier than teaching somebody to fit shoes consistently. So in order to do that, you've got to see feet. Every horseshoer knows and remembers that day when all of a sudden they looked at the foot and they said, wow, I can see that foot now. Chris Gregory said it, I think, the best when he said there's a wooden Indian in that chunk of wood somewhere. You just got to remove everything but the wooden Indian. And that stuck with me, and I use that a lot. But it really is true. If you can visualize something, you can get there better. And I've noticed that, when I've helped, taught Little League baseball and stuff, that people tend to throw, for example, where they look. People tend to hit the ball where their leg is pointing and where they're looking. And people, if you get them to draw, it's amazing how their injured steel shoes look like that drawing. So the same mistakes they make on their drawing, they make on the anvil. And so once I saw that, I realized, wow, there's really a connection here. There really is a connection to being able to draw a foot and be able to make a shoe efficiently so that it fits a foot. And I think that's the artistic bit of our trade that you just have to have. If you're just so left-brained, so tight, so analytical, by the book, man, those students have a hard time learning systems, have a hard time moving outside of a system if it's not right. We teach them normal shoe shape, left side, right side, medial side, lateral side, but if it's extreme, they're completely lost. And so those students that have a little artistic ability kind of have a buffer to that and can tend to visualize that and see the foot easier, what the foot can become. So it's really important thing what we do. And students all complain about it because they say, oh, I'm not a good artist. And I say, well, you're not a good horseshoer either, are you? So you're here to learn horseshoeing. This is a skill that's going to give you a rock in the middle of the stream to help you make it across that stream a little bit easier. I've realized is in the old days, we used to have just massive amounts of horses come in the shop, and I realized that I could get people fit and I could get them to get shoes on, but to work the finer points out, I needed to slow way down. And I realized that now we've got a whole freezer full of fresh cadaver legs, and we use cadaver legs to trim and to shape and to fit and to burn and learn how to rock our toe, learn how to fit clips, learn how to fit bar shoes. And so that's the big the work involved. The actual nailing of the shoe, it's kind of one of the easier things that we do. It's just the prep work that we do to get there. So one of the things I do is once they get their foot trimmed, then we'll check it off, and it is up to standard or not, i.e. basically the AFA judging Farrier standards. So we have them do that. Then they teach them, really important, how to make a toe bend. So that toe bend has to fit on that foot. So that means they've got to have a couple things. They've got to have the radius right. They've got to have the angles of the toe quarters right. They've got to have the shoe seated out and ready to go for the next step. if that step's not right, if you can't fit a toe bend to a foot effectively, consistently, accurately, then you go back in, and that's when shoes are all, toes are wrecked and nail holes are out of place, and shoes just don't fit very good. So what we did was the exercise of trimming a foot, making a toe bend, taking another piece of steel, taking that toe bend, making a half a shoe, trying it on that foot, bringing the other half around, and then that's one of the methods that we use to fit feet, because fitting the toe bend is so wicked important. I made a bar shoe over there just because we're in that in our curriculum. We're studying fuller bar shoes and straight bars and egg bar shoes. So one of the exercises they'll do for homework is they'll make a open-heeled plain stamp, a fullered shoe, open-heeled fullered shoe, a fullered straight bar, and then a plain stamped egg bar, all for the same foot. So they do it over and over and over again, and they kind of get that repetition. Yeah, well, the first thing we got to do is make sure you get your measurement correct. So you got to be able to measure your feet for the particular dimension of bar stock and for the size of foot. So you get that done, you get it laid out, punch your center punch mark, usually a little off center for the outside heel. Then when we're gonna make a bar shoe, it's a therapeutic shoe, so we usually put a fullered shoe on so that we can take one nail out at a time. Most therapeutic feet a little bit sore on the sole, so most of them it hurts to pull the shoe with a shoe pull off conventionally. So it's a fullered shoe. And so the first heat is to bump up the toe. And so we heat the center third and we bump up the toe, put about 1/4 to 3/8 of an inch in that, evenly bump it on both sides, keeping it straight through the process so your steel goes into each other rather than bending. So the first heat was the bumping heat to set the shoe up so that the fullering blends into the widened toe. Because when we end our fullers nowadays with a hard stop, it blows it out, and it's nice to be able to have a little bit of buffer where that wider toe comes in and blends in with that part of the shoe. So the next heat, we made the bar. So we know that it was about a 3 1/4 inch wide heel, and that is from center of heel to center of heel. And I measure from the center of the buttress to the center of the buttress because that's where the shoe's going to sit, on the center of the buttress. And I also measure that on the shoe, center to center on the shoe. So the next step was to make the bar. We're going to turn it up in what Bob Marshall taught me years ago. Bring it up, make a hockey stick, and upset it. So this, again, this teaches a student how to control their steel. They've got to learn how to upset, and they have a hard time making hockey sticks because it's just a balancing point where it's too far in, you get a big cold shunt, too far out, it rolls under and you lose the length of your bar. So I wanted to do that demo to show them that it was doable, that it's not that hard. You can get it done in a couple of heats, and you got to learn how to make a corner. So the second heat was making half of the bar and scarfing it. But the third heat was marking the shoe, hemming the shoe. We've got to hem the side of the shoe previous to fullering it because the fuller will blow out the web and you'll lose your outside web. So you've got to hem it in and kind of upset it into the stock a little bit, and then you run your fuller down. The next heat was we went in and turned the shoe according to the shape of the foot. It was a pretty nice little thoroughbred foot, a little bit wider than it was longer, but it was a decent foot. We got it trimmed up to a decent shape. So the next step was to turn the branch for the shoe and stamp it and punch it and pritchel it. So at that stage, that branch is done, the fullering's in, the nail holes should be fitting. Your section is now squared back up flat, it's squared back up, it's flattened up. The ground bearing surface is crisp, the fuller's deep enough, so at that stage it should be done. Then we go to the next side and do the same thing over again, only different to the other side. So we make our hockey stick, upset it, make our corner, and it should be about 1.5 inches, 1.75 inches. The same thing, mark our inside branch, hem it, turn it, work on the inside, make sure the inside is seated out, and then bring your scarves together and forge weld it. Now I like to bring my scarves together like this, so my hammer comes this way and pulls my scarf together. A lot of people scarf differently, some people scarf like that, and when your hammer's coming from there, when that flux is on there, it gets a bit slippery and it can slide a little bit, so that's why I like to just scarf it up that way. So we scarf it, flux it up, weld it, 1 or 2 heats, get it welded. Another kind of a overall heat to get our shape and seat it out, check our nail holes, and then rocker the toe, took it over the foot, burnt it on. Yeah, rockering toes is really important and really a common thing that we do. I think maybe a more important question is, how did you decide to rocker that shoe? And so basically when we looked at the foot, saw the center of the foot and what we call the bridge of the foot, or the center of articulation. If we go back up into the foot, into the joint, that's where that is. The toe was significantly longer. The front half of that shoe was longer than the back half of that shoe. So although we trimmed the heels back as far as we couldn't get enough length on that back half, and so we were imbalanced. We had a disproportionate amount of foot in the front. So what we did was rocker it so that that's off the ground, and now he's bearing weight pretty much back here to his white line, and this is the rocker toe, and now from this point to the bridge is the same as from the bridge to the heels. And so that rocker toe helps in two ways. It helps as the horse is standing for static balance to get the toe off the ground, so the ground's not constantly pushing up on that long toe and constantly pressuring and lowering the angle of the foot as it grows. The second thing we would do a rocker toe shoe is to help facilitate an easier breakover by removing the lever arm, what we'll call the moment arm, from the center of rotation of the coffin joint. So all in all, it's a nice, easy little modification. I think horses always pretty much like it. Modification that we did was straight across. It was the AFA style of modification. I like to teach them that because I'm a big supporter of the AFA, and I want all my students to get certified. That's the only really legitimate qualification that we have past the school diploma. So I encourage all my students to become journeyman certified, not just to stop at certified. And so I show them the AFA stuff, because at the end of their term, everybody's going to make all those modifications that they'll be able to get put together to pass their certified shoe board. Well, I used to take pride in my own personal accomplishments, my own plaques and stuff that I would get them. And that's all fine, but it's really a cool feeling to go around the world, literally, and go to clinics in New Zealand and in China, and Hong Kong, and was in China, and in Scandinavia, every place that I go. I was just in Brazil, and see my students, see how my students are doing. So it's really a cool feeling to see a student that came to you as a young kid, didn't have anything, didn't have any skills. You helped to teach them a work ethic. You helped to teach them a trade and a skill. They were good stewards of it because of your small part that you played, and also helped to get them networked with the right people. And to see those people, make national teams, or to make shoe horses for Olympic teams, or to do good, that to me is a much better feeling than bringing a crippled horse back to, into the show ring and making it sound. Not that that's not a great feeling. We love that, but to have this effect on a human being, and so many of them over the years, to be kind of a positive influence. We're really proud because the Rising Shoeing Star Award shows the result of our efforts. And I come to work every day. I don't shoe horses for a living every day. I teach people to shoe horses, and so that's my work. And I feel that that's what I'm supposed to be doing right now. And so it makes me feel good that I'm being a good steward of my job, the blessings that I've been given. So we're really proud of our students, and those guys that have won, all of them. We've had some really good ones, and the latest one, Colton Ellis. He's just a weapon. He's going to be a weapon. I just feel lucky to have a small part in all these guys and girls' education in their career. And it's really cool whenever I go around it. Most of the time the conversation gets back to, those basic things you taught me in school, I still think of them every day. And that's just a really cool feeling.